I'm John Williams. I'm a Marine veteran, and I'm 76 years young. My goal this evening is to tell you a little bit about my background, some experiences from Vietnam, and learnings, and some recommendations, both for current veterans and for civilians, in trying to understand how to deal with veterans. These are my opinions. I don't profess to say they're anything other than my opinions. I was born in Cincinnati, grew up in Dayton, upper middle class family. I was well educated, blessed to go to good schools, was able to travel and work when I was growing up. So I learned the advantages of and the importance of all kinds of other people and what you can accomplish when you work hard. I joined the Marine Corps, enlisted in the Marine Corps while I was still in college, and did it because I was planning to go to law school, and that Marine Corps would allow me to do that. We weren't in Vietnam. So I went in the Corps, got commissioned, went to law school, graduated, passed the bar, started practicing with the Taft firm in Cincinnati, and then reported for active duty in 1967. At that point, we were at war, and I talked my way into getting a commission in an MOS, a military occupational specialty, as an 0302, a Marine rifleman, a grunt, as we call him. And I talked my way into going to Vietnam. Some people have said that kind of silly, but when I went to Vietnam, I carried 2 codes with me in my little green book. One was that man must experience the peril and action of his time at risk of being judged not to have lived. And the second is that for those who fight for it, life has a special meaning. The protected never know. I did my 3 years of active duty in the Corps, both Vietnam and post-Vietnam. My 2 highlights would probably be commanding a rifle company in combat. I was wounded twice, decorated, Bronze Star with Combat V, and then came home after some time in a hospital, went to Camp Pendleton and ended up there as an aide de camp to the commanding general of Camp Pendleton. So I had some pretty special duties during my time. After the Corps, I traveled around the world for a year and a half, came back and practiced law with the Taft firm for 13 years, and then ran the Chamber of Commerce for 16 years. And I've been retired since then. I'm married to Francie, who's my special partner there. Vietnam. Like all vets, all combat vets, I experienced both physical and emotional discomfort. Physically, I was cold, I was hot, I was wet, I was parched, I was thirsty, I was hungry, I was exhausted, I was hurt, I was wounded. Emotionally, I was frightened, I was stressed, I was bored, I was excited. I had to learn to face fear and move through it. I experienced success and failure. I experienced loss, and I experienced the unknown. I had stories that ranged from NVA sappers coming through our lines and having to hunt them down and kill them before they killed us, or being out on a listening post or an outpost or an ambush in the middle of the night, and you're tired, and you're scared, and you're hypersensitive, and yet you're trying to stay awake. And you're there with a couple of other Marines, maybe as many as 12, and it's a unique experience. This ain't camping out. I experienced unending wetness. The monsoon season in Vietnam, I thought I would never, ever again be dry. I saw funny things. I came across one of my machine gun emplacements at Quai San, and suddenly found my gunner and A gunner had gone to the combat base, scrounged material, and built a still, and were using popcorn to make booze. Only Marines. I mean, they could figure it out. I was on R&R in Sydney, Australia, walking down the street, and a car backfired, and instantly I found myself prone on the street. And all these people looked at me like, what's going on? But to me, it was just like a mortar round coming into caisson, and I'd learned to hit the deck with the slightest sound, which is what kept me alive. I remember being in the highlands of Japan in this mountainous area. And those of you who remember the movie South Pacific, and they were on Valley High bathing in this mountain stream. And so we came across this mountain stream. My rifle company, 220 plus men, half of them stripped off their gear and went swimming, and the other half, fully armed, facing outboard, provided protection, and then the other half bathed. I remember getting a pot, a helmet full of water, a steel pot full of hot water to bathe after 30 days, my first bath after 30 days. Because up until then, we had water rationing, so I had only enough water each day to shave, which I and my men did, because clean-shaven Marines are squared-away Marines. But after 30 days, to shave in that helmet full of water, or to bathe in that helmet full of water, and then be given a clean, not new, but a clean set of socks, trousers, t-shirt, and blouse, jacket. I have never, and I've been greatly spoiled throughout my life, but I have never, ever had such luxury. And then I've had the burden of trying to understand why I lived when others beside me and around me didn't. And I've had to wonder whether if I'd made different decisions at different points in time, would some of my people be alive today? And combat veterans will understand that. It's a burden. What are my learnings? Well, no one's perfect. Most of us are just trying to live our lives and do the best we can. I learned to choose the difficult right over the easy wrong, and not to whine or make excuses. I learned to judge others by their actions and look out for the group before yourself. I learned the importance of balancing the mission with the welfare of your troops. And that carries over into life. You got to run your companies, but you better take care of your people. And it's a balancing act that's very important. I learned to live with intensity and a passion for excellence without losing compassion for mistakes. Learn to combine the best of yourself with the effort and skill of others. Don't do it alone. Learn the value of character and integrity, leadership, creativity, problem solving, teamwork. My young Marines could do anything, anything. If I could clearly say what we needed to do and turn them loose and then give them the support that I possibly could, they did it because they didn't know they couldn't. Unbelievable young men. Respect differences. Embrace responsibility over rights or entitlements. Because with responsibility, you're in charge. With entitlement and rights, somebody else is in charge. And I learned that there's very little, if anything, that one has a right to. Things of any value, for example, love, respect, trust, success, have to be earned. I learned that having faced death and those life and death challenges has helped me over the years to recognize that most of the challenges that I've faced in peacetime really aren't that darned important. I gave a talk one time to a group, the Chamber of Commerce, and I was being sniped at. And I finally looked out and I said, You can snipe at me all you want, but I've been shot at and hit. And you can't do that to me, so have at it. So the Corps, while one of my life's great experiences, was not the only one and isn't the only one. The Corps influenced me greatly. Vietnam influenced me greatly. But it didn't define me, and it's not where I stopped. And that's part of my message. My advice to vets: understand that civilians will never be able to understand what you did and what you experienced. Accept that without finding fault. Recognize that the civilian world is different than the military, but that the same good qualities of hard and first-class work, initiative, assumption of responsibility, truthfulness, a willingness to learn and listen are prized and rewarded. Recognize that you're more than a combat vet or a vet, that was just one phase of your life, and you've got a lot of life still to live. And you alone are responsible for living it. Remember and accept that while in combat, you did your best. You did the best you could while you were there. And don't what if yourself to death. Don't focus on the negative things. Be willing to forgive yourself if necessary, and realize that that healing is a process or an adjustment phase one goes through by trying different things. You veterans, we veterans, have experienced the pride of exceeding expectations and the power of working as a team. Thus, we should accept our responsibility for getting on with our life and just go do it. Don't be a victim and don't wallow in cynicism. Ask for help and give help. Seek mentors and learn from those who are the best, and be willing to listen and learn. Remember that respect is earned and not freely given, and there is little, if anything, that anyone is entitled to. We have to continue to earn it all the time, and nothing comes to those who wait. Be a giver, not a victim. Life can be unfair and a bitch. And as one of my Marine friends said, some people suck. So either give up and quit, or man up or woman up and deal with it. Remember, you veterans are the master of your character. You alone can choose what you stand for. But you have an advantage because you have experienced and overcome adversity unknown to others, and thus future adversity you can deal with. Now, my advice to civilians in trying to understand or deal with veterans, and many of us as veterans bristle at the thank you for your service thing because we at times feel it's insincerely given. So my advice to a civilian is recognize that you can't fully understand what a veteran went through and you can't be expected to, because you can't understand something you haven't experienced and lived through. You have to have walked the trail. Understand and accept that the veteran's perspective is different than yours because he or she exhibited courage by voluntarily signing a blank check to the American people payable with his or her life. They made a commitment when the country and its political leadership couldn't define or wouldn't define our country's level of commitment. And they faced daunting odds and the random nature of death and wounds on the battlefield. Have compassion without pity. Respect and appreciate that they have gone through something you haven't. Thank them for that. Thank them for having gone through something that you haven't, not just for their service. Because you can't understand what their service was if you haven't done it. Get to know the veteran as fully as you would a friend. Listen to understand with acceptance and without judging. And remember finally that the ability to understand and reason with people requires time, patience, compassion, trust, and listening to understand. Like race relations or politics, there's no simple answer. Thank you.